Streaming live around the world, this is Paper Cuts.
Why don't we start our own show?
With Brad Proctor.
I forgot to break up my fancy straw.
You
sound insane. Do you realize that?
And Jay Maddox.
We're called Paper Cuts? Who came up with that name?
We need like some name tags with our picture on it, all laminated and whatnot. I mean, we gotta look legit, man.
We are live.
So Rectum, I nearly killed him. Shoot, we're live now, right?
We're
Welcome,
live,
everyone. Hey, Brad, I gotta tell you something. That fancy voice guy there, I mean, he's kind of sexy.
We gotta pay
I
him
hear that
some money or
voice.
something.
I know. What's going on, guys? This is Paper Cuts. I am your awesome host, Jay Maddox, along with my co-host. Am I a host or co-host? I guess we're co-hosts.
We're co-hosts.
There we go. Brad
There
Proctor. You know him from his channel, Brad Proctor. It's the one and only Brad Proctor.
What's going on, guys?
Okay. Boy, could I be any smoother? I don't know.
That was pretty smooth.
Special guest this evening, someone I've gotten to know a little bit over the past year. He's also someone who has a restraining order against me because I've become a Weirdpunk Books groupie, basically. Writer of Sabbath of the Fox Devils, writer of the very hard to get To All on Ash No Sorrows. He has a number of short stories in various anthologies. On top of this, the owner, operator, and editor of Weirdpunk Books. This is the one and only Sam Richard.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
What's going on, Sam?
Not a whole lot.
Now, I know Brad had a question that he was dying to ask you right from the get-go.
Yeah.
This is a very serious, hard-hitting question. So, what in the world were you thinking when you made Jay your unofficial BookTube spokesperson for Weirdpunk Books?
I was just really into this whole 1970s DJs payola thing to play the right records. I was just reading about that, and I thought Jay could be that for me.
There you go. Yeah, just exactly. I mean, my past with working in radio, I mean, it fits. It fits.
You said 1970s. I thought you were going to make an old man joke.
Well, yeah. I mean, because
that's when he was DJing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Oh,
I figured he was primed for it.
And those are some of the reasons why I'm having hearing loss now. So,
and you're half blind. It's all going downhill from here.
Exactly. So, thank you so much for joining us on this little adventure we're doing, this paper cut show, the shindig, and it hasn't collapsed yet. So, I think we're doing good. I think we're doing good.
One and a quarter episodes in.
I'm here to kill it for you.
Exactly. So. Should we start grilling them? Let's grill them. Who's here so far? Let's just see who's here first.
We got Nikki's here, and Nikki's got her own show. So NW Readers here. They're talking together.
Oh, okay. They're having their own conversation, and they forgot we're having a show here.
Fiber Artsy's here. That's everybody in the comments so far. There's 7 people watching so far. So
okay, well let's just
pop in the chat.
Let's just throw a softball here to start things off. Why start a company?
It's funny because I actually didn't start the company.
Okay, so there's a story there.
Yeah, if you want it.
Man.
Weirdpunk was started by my one of my best friends, Emma Alice Johnson, who in her own right was a multiple-time Wonderland Award-winning author. And in 2014, she was like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a press and I want to do an anthology. Do you want to co-edit it with me? And I was like, yeah, fuck it. What do you want to do? And she, of course, already had the idea. And that was our very first book, Blood for You, a literary tribute to G.G. Allen. I don't know if y'all are familiar with G.G. Allen, but
I am, and that's probably the only one I don't have. I have the anthologies on my Kindle, and that's the only one I haven't gotten yet. So
that was kind of a weird, I'm not a G.G. Allen fan,
right?
But not really that segment of punk. But the entire idea behind it was she was like, well, he doesn't make sense in our world, so let's have writers write worlds that he makes sense in, and that was kind of what started Weirdpunk. So we did that. It took kind of slowly figuring out everything. It took about a year to come out, and then she had let's maybe do a second one. And it was the day that the launch party for the first book happened. We were talking, and it was it's a lot of work to do an anthology.
Right.
And she was like, you know what? We just did this massive undertaking, this big project that took us months to do together. I want to do it again, but let's give ourselves like some breathing room before we do the next one. And I was like, I'm good with that. And then literally the next day she called me. She said, okay, the next anthology is Hybrid Moments, a literary tribute to the Misfits, which then ended up being the second anthology. And that we didn't do Misfits in stories. We did stories.
I don't know if that shows up.
Yep.
Probably with a glare.
We did story. We had writers take songs of theirs that weren't already based around like IP. So a bunch of their stories are old B, or a bunch of their songs are old B movies.
Right.
We're like, what the other ones had people write stories kind of based on those songs, those finding narratives within those kind of surreal horror lyrics, and then that again kind of took about a year, and then we started working on the third one, which was Zombie Punk's Fuck Off. And at that point she was like, I'm really like, this has been really fun and I still want to do the publishing side of things, but I don't really want to take the time to like do all the editing stuff and read the submissions and do that. I just want to publish it. So why don't you do the editing? Why don't you be head editor instead of co-editor on that? And it was halfway through doing that book that my wife died. And so it took about a year extra because I was just obviously not in a place to do anything, but was such a big supporter of my work and of Weirdpunk and of everything that it was really important for me that become like a published thing. Right. Only see the light of day. So I kind of scraped together what humanity was like kind of building back inside of me and put it into that. And by the time I was ready, I went to Emma and I was like, I think I'm ready to like finish this. The stories were already there. It just needed, all the edits and all that. And she was like, this kind of extra year of stuff. I've loved publishing. I've loved Weirdpunk, but I just want to do other stuff. I want to pursue other passions. So you can just have it.
Wow.
Yeah.
The gift.
And I was like, okay. And so I took a little time to think about it. I was like, well, I had kind of in the back of my mind been thinking about maybe I'll start my own press. I'll still do Weirdpunk. Like when she was running Weirdpunk, I was like, I'll still do Weirdpunk with her. But I had been thinking about doing my own, kind of more in the Dim Shores model, like limited release of novellas and whatnot. And she gave me Weirdpunk, and I was like, it doesn't make any sense to grow an entire new thing from the ground when I have this. So then what made sense to me was kind of twisting it to more fit my passions. And not that the punk stuff isn't a passion of mine, because it is. Like, I'm a massive Misfits fan. And I just, like, I've been into punk my whole life. I've played in punk and metal bands my whole life. But I kind of got, I think after 3 anthologies, I got really burnt out on the punk as the aesthetic of the book. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, it needs to be kind of more, some of my other passions need to be included. And the punk aspect of it is going to be the underlying philosophy in which I operate the press, right? Like that old school DIY ethic, trying to be as good to people as possible, trying to make everything, I don't know, just equitable and reasonable and just that DIY spirit. Not trying to fuck anybody over, not trying to make $1 million, just trying to like do fucking something that's really cool and that I believe in. And so that kind of became the punk part of Weirdpunk. And
it makes a lot more sense now, the name Weirdpunk, where that comes from. Because I didn't know, I didn't get that at first. So that makes more sense.
Yeah, for her vision initially was like where punk and weird fiction collide. And I'm like, weird.
That's a cool name too. I like the name.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm just like, weird horror with a punk like DIY kind of ethos.
I mean, just the title itself, I look at it as related to music, because I mean, punk music, it's going against the grain, going against anything that's established, that whole mindset. So you put together the writers that you have that make up your foundation and add that punk to it, and that's what we have now. And I mean, it's great because you decided not to change the name. I mean, when she gave it to you, you kept that name, right?
It was it didn't make any sense. There had already been, support for it. There'd already been fans and people who liked the books and people who were encouraging the books. And so then with the Zombie Punk's Fuck Off, like I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never done the back end of publishing stuff. I'd only ever edited. And so I called Lisa and Christoph at Clash Books and
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, hey, do you want to co-release this with me? Because I literally
Right.
have it done, but I don't know how to do a layout. I don't know how to get it uploaded. I don't know about the various print on demand like options. And so they were gracious enough to like help me finish that. And then the next book, The New Flesh, the Cronenberg tribute that I co-edited with Brendan, like that, it was kind of important to me that be the first book that was like truly like my first solo Weird Punk release. Obviously he co-edited it, but like in terms of my vision for the press, because Brendan and I started talking about doing that anthology literally the day we met. It was at BizarroCon, I want to say 2015, but it might have been 2016. And we were talking about Cameron Pierce put out the David Lynch anthology. There were a couple other like director forward or, director tribute anthologies. And we were like, why the fuck hasn't anybody done a Cronenberg one? Like, we should do that. And then I was like, I had approached, that was still at the time when Emma was running things. And I was like, hey, I have this idea. And she was like, yeah, it's, it doesn't have the punk music aspect. And I was like, that's fine. I mean, but so then it was, as soon as it was my show, I'm like, this is the shit we're doing.
Yeah.
He's like the Weird Punk of movies. So
yeah.
he's got to fit in here somehow.
Basically,
yeah.
And I can totally see how if you kept doing punk anthologies, you'd sort of paint yourself into a corner and said you changed it up and broadened, and now you can basically do whatever you want to.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm certainly not like opposed to punk elements being in the novellas or the anthologies I publish now, right? Like 17 Names for Skin, Roland Blackburn's novella is very punk. It's about a punk. It's got a lot of anti-fascism in it. It's like right up my alley, but it's like, so I'm not allergic to that punk aspect. It's just kind of more in the background than the foreground.
Yeah,
I actually still owe you a review for that one. That's the one that I've not gotten to yet, but give me a little bit more time.
I mean, I don't know what you're doing over there. Just fucking.
I think I've already read everything else, but I mean that's the one I haven't got to yet. So
how dare you? I mean, you have me on. You haven't read every book I put out.
You're supposed to be the Weird Punk pimp, and you haven't.
I am. I'll have it done this weekend. Okay, maybe. So
got Alex down here in the comments. She says the New Flesh anthology is amazing.
Yes. Yeah. I love Alex. She's amazing. She's
actually she won. She won this.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So glad she could stop by.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Being the editor and doing your stuff, do you ever have issues editing your own work, or do you have somebody else do yours since you add yours to the anthologies?
In the instances where I've done the anthologies and include my own short story, it was always the other editor. I make sure it's up to snuff with the other editor.
Right.
Which when it was with Zombie Punks, like I just made sure Emma, I was like, would you sign off on this if you were editing since you're publishing it? And I know that can be a tricky thing. Some people are like, editors should never put their work in anthologies. And I can understand that from a certain perspective, I guess, but it's also like, I have both just me and all of the stuff with Emma, we put out the Weird Punk anthologies because they were the anthologies we wanted someone else to put out so we could write stories for them. And so it just like seemed like, why would I put it out if I don't get to also write the story for it?
Especially if you're like the genesis behind the idea and you're so behind the idea and pumped about it, you want to add your own voice to that story as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, it's like always making sure that the other person involved is like okay with it, feels like it's up to the level. So Beautiful Grotesque was kind of a new beast because there was no co-editor on that. And that was just like, I just invited some of my friends, who I've done stuff with. So that was kind of, we did, so Katie Michelle Quinn, Joe Quinnell, who wrote the Mud Ballad, and I did Laser Mall together with Filthy Loot, which was just like a joke that became a project where we did horror with lasers, and we each just wrote a story. Ira Rat at Filthy Loot was like gracious enough to put it out. Still one of my favorite things I've ever worked on. And I kind of had this idea of like, oh, it'd be really fun to do another small project like that where it's like talk to a few friends and have them write stories for it. And that's what Beautiful Grotesque became. But I was like, I really still want to just do the same thing with Joe Quinnell and with Katie Michelle Quinn and then invite other friends. Like, a couple other friends. So we invited Joanna Koch, and we invited Roland because I had just worked with them, and they're fucking great. They're great writers and they're great people. But I just really, that one I was like, okay, there's not a co-editor here for me to bounce off. Is my story good enough? You know, not that I had just invited them, so if like I didn't like any of their stories, I kind of didn't know what I was going to do. But luckily, I like loved all their stories. But I was like, does anybody want to read this to make sure that because like I like it and it feels very in line with the really sad shit that I write sometimes. But like, I want to make sure that y'all feel like it's like up to this.
Well, it was almost like homework. Like you gave him homework because you gave the piece of artwork to him.
Yeah.
So write something from this. I don't know if that would show up or not, but there's the artwork there.
Yeah, the Zadislav Piskinski.
Yeah. And I call everyone who put a story in this, I call them your gang because that's the foundation of the library that you have for Weirdpunk Books.
Yeah, the only one who I haven't done a solo release with is Katie.
Exactly. Yeah, and this was the first one I checked out.
But she's in the new Flash, and we did Laser Mall together.
Mm-hmm.
I love her, and I love her work, and I have badgered her incessantly to write the novella. So
that's cool to get to work with all your friends on a project like that too.
Absolutely.
That Laser Mall, I keep telling myself I got to pick that one up because I know you collab with Filthy Loot and who else? Clash also at times, and yeah, I keep telling myself I got to pick up some Filthy Loot stuff and check it out too. So
Filthy Loot is great.
Yeah,
has a really keen eye for just like weird, cool shit. He and I, like, we've become friends just from like, I don't know, we just like bounce ideas off each other, kind of like a little mini publisher like friendship of like, oh, do you think this would work? Do you think this would work? I'm gonna try this. That guy has been like an indispensable source of just like bouncing ideas back and forth. Plus, he puts out really great, really cool books. I highly recommend everybody like check his shit out. It's
right.
cool.
We've got author Rob Shepard down here saying that he thinks your books are awesome, and it's good to see a publisher that's weird like him putting out books.
That's fucking awesome, man. Yeah, that's the weird shit's the best shit, right?
It is. Rob's
It
cool
is.
guy.
It always is. It is. Let's talk about the swag that you always give away with your books. I mean, I have like a whole collection here of postcards.
Cool sticker.
Whose idea was the postcards? Because I've gotten those from a few other publishers too, and I like them. I like to set them around the house and just freak out my kids every now and then. But
yeah, I've seen a lot of my inspiration comes from music, from like I'm a record collector. Like if I move my camera around, you could see a lot of my record collection. I order a lot of records from indie labels, again, like just punk and metal and gothy post-punk shit. And a lot of them will throw in like it's kind of the old school thing, right? You get the even if it's not a postcard, you get like old flyers or you get stickers. You might get a button. And I was just like, I definitely have seen other presses do it too, but I was like, yeah, I just want to do that, like that cool thing. Fuck it, I'll just have some. I wanted to get postcards made of every release. Some of them because the dimension, like sizing it down to the postcard size, you lose a little text.
Right.
Those ones I don't. Once I get them and if that's happened, I don't redo those ones. I just try to keep the ones in stock that are like look still really good as a postcard. But I always want to give every one of them like let's see when it shows up, how it looks. And it just became a thing. Like everybody who gets a book, as long as I have them on hand. Occasionally I do them out. I'm not going to hold your order because the stickers aren't going to be in.
Because I'm running out of room with the stickers. By the way, I got that.
Yes,
I got a couple of those on my Kindle on the front of it here.
Oh,
that's just the Weirdpunk Kindle right there.
It is basically. Well, I needed a place to put them.
We're going to do Kindles.
There you go. Yeah,
there you go.
Special edition to Kindle.
Yeah, I was like, I had gotten some really good bookmarks from a few
I got a koozie.
I love
Nice.
Muzzleland Press, which is Jonathan Rabb. He lives in, I believe, Denver. And I've ordered, he's kind of slowed down because he had a kid. He's still publishing, his new book comes out, I think Return to Ash pretty soon. The Secret Goatman Spook Show.
That's a cool title.
Highly recommended. He kind of runs in the same, I know he's friends with Matthew M. Bartlett and kind of runs in that scene, the weird fiction scene. But he runs Muzzleland Press, and I was really impressed by the postcard by the bookmark that I got from him. that I was like, fuck, I got to do bookmarks now.
Exactly. Yeah. I got a bunch of those floating around too.
Just trying
other books.
Yeah. But like, I posted recently about it. I was like, yeah, do people like this? Do people people into this? And it was all positive responses. So it was like, cool. I mean, I'll keep doing it. I just didn't know if like, you know, sometimes when I get stuff, I'm like, oh, that's cool, but I don't really have a lot of places for that stuff to go because I just own a lot of shit. So it's like a box, you know. But if people like it, like I'll absolutely keep doing it. The one Evan Jones was like, he's like, they were like, I love them, but I seriously have enough of the black and white Weirdpunk stickers to go whatever they said. Like, just you don't ever need to send me those. Fine, but
so I like all that swag because I keep like all the postcards that people send and all the stickers and bookmarks. I just keep it collected. It's awesome. I love all that stuff. And they're in the chat saying, you know, I love swag. Swag's great. Everybody loves the swag.
Cool, good.
I'll keep it somewhere, and then 10 years from now we're cleaning, doing something. My wife will say, "Do we really need to keep this?" You know, like come on.
Say yes, I do. That's my Weirdpunk sticker, man. Don't mess with it.
Yeah. Then wait till I'm at work one day, and I'll come home and it won't be there.
Yeah, I know. I have like a envelope somewhere, I think in my back closet, with all of the Dim Shores. Right, those come with the full size print of the cover. I have like, some of them are hanging up. But I was at a certain point, I was like, I don't have enough wall space for all of these.
And they definitely look good enough to hang out. Like even the postcards, you could put them in little picture frames and put them around your desk and stuff.
Yeah.
They're sweet. So
create like a nice background for our videos, Brad.
That's right.
Somehow. Yeah.
I mean, you got to keep repping Weirdpunk forever, Jay, or I'm cutting you off. So
exactly.
Next time we have Sam on, he can have them all in his background now.
Yeah.
I should have put them just here.
You should just have.
You just need to get a big sticker, a weird print, a Weirdpunk right behind your head.
Well, it's like when you're younger and you put your favorite rock band poster in your room for the first time. It's got like 25 different pinholes in the corners because you keep moving it, and then you got the tape on the back that's falling off. So,
what are they called? Fat heads? Is that what the sports ones are? You need a big fat head of the Weirdpunk logo.
Yeah. Let's hop into Wallow and Ash for a second. It's a Wonderland award-winning collection of short stories. Considering the events surrounding the writing of these stories, what does that award mean to you?
In probably the most unhealthy way, it felt like validation for the pain of losing Mo.
Yeah.
And I really mean like it probably wasn't the healthiest reaction to have because like my pain of the loss of my wife is certainly valid and everybody's pain is valid. But then like, it's really valid because I won an award. So that was like in the worst way what my ego did. But on a like less kind of self-destructive level, it just felt weirdly like it was very complex to win that award for that book. Like, I don't know that I would have written a book that good. I mean, I don't want to be conceited, but I think that's a pretty good book.
It is, yeah. And the short story, Death Like Love, that goes pretty deep. And I think I may have mentioned that may have been the best short story I've ever read myself. So, I mean, it gets pretty graphic too.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah. It teeters on, pure naughtiness. I mean, did you ever think about think it was going too far? Did you decide to scale it back some? Or is that the original?
That fucking story wrecked me. I mean, it was so emotionally exhausting to write. And it was constantly going into a really dark, terrible place.
Right.
Like I've in other interviews, I've talked a lot about how that writing that story was an exorcism. And it truly was. That's how it felt. I wasn't sleeping. I wrote it over, I don't know, it was like 3 days-ish. Most of it was within 3 days. And the original version of it was 2,000 words longer. The original version, the story actually continues after the end of where it ends in the book. And I was like, I don't know that I'm necessarily done, but I'm at maybe a good stopping point. And I actually sent it to Emma Alice Johnson because she's read a lot of my stuff and has kind of helped me over so much of my writing career. And I was I sent it to her and I was fucking, like, I was a wreck for like an hour because I felt really weird about someone reading that. But it wasn't just someone, it was also someone who was close to Mo. Someone
okay. Yeah.
who were really good friends. They loved each other. And I had this really intense fear about, like, are people going to think I'm a bad person? Are people going to think this is exploitative? That was never my intention. But is that what people are going to see in this? Is that the vibe people are going to get? Are they going to react differently to my intention behind the piece? Which, again, was kind of this exorcism. And it was nerve-wracking to wait for her response to reading it. And it came like maybe 45 minutes later, and it was like, so I've been ugly crying for like 20 minutes, and this is great, and you didn't go too far. You can feel the pain. It's like, clearly it's about the pain. It's about the loss. It's not about kind of the gross sexual shit in it. But then she had some feedback. She was like, you could actually stop it here. It'd make a perfect, it's like, you can keep it how it is if you want, but you could stop it here and it would be perfect. And I like had a whole like, should I, shouldn't I? And eventually I was like, I'm going to see. So I read it from start to finish and just with like it end here.
Right.
Like, okay, yeah, actually you're right. I still kind of want to flush that out into a full, like a novelette or maybe a novella, because I still have, like, I know where it was going to go. But it was truly like the most harrowing thing I've ever written. And the fact that I felt that way about it was what told me, like, keep writing it.
Right.
What told me people should read this, because it's doing something to you that nothing I'd written at that point had done. And I've written like every story in that book from, the time after she died was its own like form of dealing with the loss. Every story in that I wrote in the wake of her death is like little different aspects of grief. And I kind of would realize either partway through or when I was done on reread, being like, oh, this is what I'm processing through this.
Right.
It's not like the rest of the collection is, doesn't have heavy emotional aspects.
There's some other ones in there. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's just the way that one
kind
of wrecked me, like fully wrecked me. I was like, why? That's what you need to do, right? In a weird way, I'm like, that's what I want art to be, at least some of the time, is that thing that's like, this fucking hurts to write. So people should read it.
Did winning that award like validate like other people connecting with your pain and they sort of going through the same process as you, sort of mindset as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, even the whole time I was writing it, it was like, if nothing else, I don't know how people who haven't had profound loss will feel, especially like people who've never lost a spouse, but any kind of profound loss, feel about this. But I know that it will connect, at least on some level, with the widow community that I'm in, because I have a lot of young widower friends, and it's like, if nothing else, maybe this will help in those really dark times feel like they're not alone, especially the nuances of how those emotions can even battle each other or just be like really complex, and you feel fucked up because you don't even know which one is quite at the top of the shit pile that is like loss. But just knowing that, like, oh, other people have experienced this and experienced how messy these emotions can be, and these desires and these drives, even though it's all fiction, it's like those drives are there for so many people when they lose someone. So it was like, if nothing else, people who've had profound loss, at least some of them hopefully will feel less alone in the
make that connection there for you.
So then, like, winning the award was like, okay, like, other readers also connected with the emotional aspect. And so that was in a less unhealthy way, I could just kind of validation for like, hey, at least I was able to convey that, like, in a way that connected with other people, which is like, as a writer, kind of what I always want is like to convey an emotion inside a story. And if that
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was just, if that lands, that it's like, I've actually done the thing, I did what I set out to do.
Was that cathartic, not only writing it, but knowing people, maybe you can help someone else through a dark time that you experienced too?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, incredibly cathartic writing it, for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like in some strange way, that book kept me alive. It also helped me process through a lot of that grief and like, figuring out that through the page, like I'm dealing with a certain weird element of loss, but then definitely having, especially again, like knowing that widow friends of mine who are not horror fans read it, felt that connection and felt that like understood where it was coming from, even though it wasn't, wrapped in a story type that's their thing, or it was definitely, more gross or more dark than what they normally write, or what they normally read. That like definitely made me feel like really, it was a cathartic moment. Like when I would get those, like, I finished your book. Oh my God, I felt everything. I know all these feelings. Like, okay, and then it's right. It's a transfer because it's me putting it out there, being like, in some regard, at least, like you're not alone in feeling this. And then when you get that feedback, they're saying you're not alone in feeling this.
Yeah,
and that's really powerful. That's like such a cool thing.
Was there a vulnerability you were afraid of in putting it out there to the world?
Absolutely.
With how personal it was to you?
Yeah, especially really truly the first story and the last story, right, are the most, there's not so much like fantastical stuff in those stories. It's still horror, but it's very human horror. And so like To Wallow and Ash, like the first story is, I've had multiple people ask me how her ashes tasted, right? As though that was something that I actually did and then wrote about.
Right. Because it is believable. I mean, that's what you got to cross, because I even thought myself, like, okay, I got to ask him, did he really do this? Yeah.
It's all fiction. I mean, there's truth in there, but I never
exactly.
This, but like everything's wrapped in truth, to some degree or another. But that kind of awkward, at times, but feeling really vulnerable with that story and the last story, like really specifically the last story. So that the To Wallow and Ash, the first story, was in an anthology prior to, it was in the Strange Behaviors anthology that Nihilism Revised, who published the collection, put out. And so people had read it before before my short story collection came out. So I had already had that reaction from people being like, did you actually eat her ashes?
Right.
So then putting out the short story collection with the Death Like Love in it, being like, are people going to have the same fucking reaction to the story about necrophilia? Like, truly, like, I didn't, it's like, that was part of the thing. Are people going to think, if they thought that story is real, are they going to think this story is real?
It's like stepping stones. You do something that's not as bad as that, so it's sort of believable, and you take it to the next step. It's like, oh, maybe he did that. Next step, maybe he really did do that,
Yeah, so there's like a lot of vulnerability in that, and people being like, are they going to think I'm a terrible person? Are they going to think I actually did that? Because it is, and I say in the back, like there's the little story notes in the back of the collection where I just kind of talked about Genesis or different things about each of the stories. And in that, I mentioned it. It was like that entire Death Like Love, the entire story was born out of like one small moment, like inside that there was a fucking room that her body was in after she passed at the hospital, like in the ER. They put her body in a room so we could all say goodbye. I was the last person to say goodbye, and I was sitting there, and I, it's like that desperation of like, you can't be dead,
right?
Having that, like, there are all the things we'll never do ever again, and it's like a million fucking things. We'll never go on the trips we wanted to go on. And it's like the grandiose stuff, but it's also like the day-to-day shit, which is super important, which is like why you're with the person you're with typically.
Right.
The day-to-day shit. And so it's like, I'll never fucking kiss her again. We'll never have sex again. We'll never sit on the couch and eat pizza and drink beer and watch schlocky horror movies again. We'll never, I don't know, just like we'll never go out to eat. We'll never take a walk around the lake. We'll never have like the kind of conversations that, we would have together. Like all of it, it's all gone. And so there was that moment of like, we're never going to embrace in that way ever again.
Like a lifetime all in one moment. So
it's gone, right? Entirely gone. And so that was born out of that idea of like, so much of that book, so much of my grief writing is the protagonist typically of pretty much always a stand-in roughly for me. And the loss pretty much always roughly a stand-in for Mo. The surviving spouse deciding to do grief the wrong way. And not that there's a right way or a wrong way, but like the most unhealthy way, right? To follow that in the most unhealthy direction. And so it was like, what would that moment have looked like in the most unhealthy way? And that's what that book is.
And you're re-releasing this next summer? Is that what you told me?
Yeah.
With some B-sides?
There's no B-sides, but there's plans for a 2022 re-release with another small press. A contract hasn't been signed. So, but I mean, we've talked about it. They approached me and they're great. I love them. So I'm stoked to do it. It's just I can't fully announce until a contract has been signed. But I definitely, whatever happens, if it's for some reason that doesn't happen, like Weirdpunk will put it out or something.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah. But it's really important to me to add something to it because people bought it and I want to incentivize there's a new thing in it. And, there was a couple, two of the stories had some errors in them that I wanted to get fixed too. So it'll be like a kind of revised version plus either a novelette or a novella that'll be right in that same kind of vein. So just to give people here's not just one more story. Here's 20,000 more words.
Right.
That's just you won't be able to get standalone. It'll only come in that. It sucks to have it win an award and then 2 fucking months later go out of print. And that was partially me, I guess. So Nihilism Revised, SC Burke, who runs that, who's a very dear friend of mine now. I love that guy like a brother. He's had a lot of health problems, and I'm not outing this. He's pretty open about it on his own social media. But it got to a point where it was kind of inhibiting his ability to effectively run the press.
Mm-hmm.
And so we basically made the decision that all of the books will be going out of print. And he does, I think it's a 2-year window, and then you can opt to keep it in print or pull it. So he was going to let the contracts run out for everything. And there was some part of me that was I don't want this to just the time run out and then it's gone. That feels worse than me saying okay, it's going to go out of print anyhow. I'm going to make the decision to put a few months early or whatever it was. So I technically am the one that made it go out of print, but I was this is going to loom over my head until I just do it. So I'm just going to do it.
There's 2 comments here from my friend Dana talking about this. Books have helped me through many dark times as therapy or just an escape. And she follows that up with, "You're not alone" is one of the kindest things you can say or do for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And fiction, I mean, nonfiction too, but fiction has such an innate ability to do that, to help people when you're having a hard time, when shit's dark, or you're going through whatever trauma or loss or grief, or just if it's depression or just day-to-day shit. Books can very much make you feel like you're not alone. It's so cool.
So you started a subscription this year, and from your tweets, it looks like it's pretty successful. I mean, what was the whole idea behind that? I know you'd mentioned it one time. It was about the old what was it? Buy a bunch of cassettes for a penny.
Oh,
I mean that's what I was getting out of it.
Oh no! I follow. Like I said, I'm a big record collector, and I follow a lot of small record labels who do subscription clubs, and it's not like you know what I'm talking about, though, right? You remember? I think it was Electra or something like that. Yeah, you would get it. You'd get 16 for a penny, and then they didn't tell you that each one you bought was $25 when you could get it for $10 down at the local. Yeah. Exactly. I just there's a couple record labels. There's a mostly metal record label from Wisconsin called Gilead Media. And there's a movie, mostly 80s B movie soundtrack record company called Terror Vision. They did it. I know they've done a bunch of cool shit. They did The Brain. They put the Brain soundtrack out on vinyl. Just a lot of B movie stuff. Anyhow, they both do subscription clubs where it's a yearly. You pay up front.
Right.
You get. It's usually I think limited subscriber only variant of the vinyl color.
Mm-hmm.
And you get them just as they come out. You basically it's essentially a pre-order and you save a little money And I was like, I've never seen a small press do that, but it seems like I know the guy who wrote Gilead, and it seems like pretty good. Like, I think it does well enough for him, and it helps him. It's really about like cutting down those, not just cutting down, but like those upfront costs, making sure they're covered. Right, like the money's there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If one of the releases doesn't sell like I hope it will, I still have the money to put out the records. And I was just like, I've never seen a small press do it. Maybe one has, but I just not seen it. I was like, what if I did that? Why can't I do that? I can fuck it. I can do whatever I want. I run the
exactly.
And
you limited it to 30, right?
Yeah.
Was it 20 or 30? I can't remember.
Yeah,
30.
I waffled back and forth between 25 and 30. I was just like not sure. And then for a while it was sitting at like just over 25. It was like 26 had subscribed. And I was like, fuck, I should have done 25 and it could be like done, because it just felt like it's fine. I don't expect people to here take money for books that I don't. Some of them I haven't announced yet. You know, it's like I don't know that I'll like this for sure, but I don't know. People eventually they all sold down, like completely sold out, and then I even oversold it by one because my sister was like, I want to get that for our dad for say, are you sold out? I was like, I'm sold out, but I had like 2 extra beer koozies. I have all the prints. I have all the, I do like book gets a postcard print of that book with it. And then each release gets its own sticker, like different new Weirdpunk sticker. And then you get the bookmark and you get the koozie. And I was like, I have, because the minimum amount of koozies I could get was 40. I've given a couple away, but I was like, I had an extra, so sure, my dad can have one.
I suppose we can make an exception. That's
yeah. You know, maybe for my dad.
So your dad getting the subscription, is your family pretty supportive of Weirdpunk and your writing and everything?
Yeah, it's really interesting because my sister is one of my biggest supporters for sure, and my dad is also like extremely supportive. And then my mom and my stepdad, like I was asking my sister about it, I don't know, a while ago. So I have a little tangential thing. I have a short story in the Oculus Sinister anthology that Chthonic Press put out. C.M. Mueller, who puts out the Night Scripts yearly anthologies, he did this one-off. It's all like eye horror. And the story in that, I was like, I want to do.
Can't read that.
It's
eye horror.
Good stuff in there. Like John Langan is in there, and I don't know, just like a bunch of really cool people. But I was like, I gotta fucking write. I started to write the story, and it ended up kind of being about my relationship with my mom, and which is complex to say the least. And like it's fine, but I was kind of putting a lot of like, oh, that's things are weird and sometimes hard, and especially in the wake of grief. And so I wrote this whole story, and then I got published, and I went, does my mom read my stuff?
Yeah.
So I asked my sister, I was like, we went over there. It was during COVID, I feel like during, so we were like out in her garage, everybody wearing masks, but I like took her around the corner in privacy. I was like, so does mom read this stuff? Because if she does, make sure she doesn't read this story. And she was like, yeah, actually, I can ask. I don't think they read it, but I'll ask her and my stepdad. And she talked to them a few days later because I didn't really want to ask. And she talked to them a few days later, and they were like, so is it all like weird horror stuff? And he's still doing that? Like those were
still doing that. Okay.
Yeah, he's still doing it. And he actually just got an anthology that just came out. But you don't need to read it because it's one of the better ones.
just be proud of them. You don't need to check it out.
Exactly. So it's a bit weird, and it is strange to have, again, especially like the really intense stuff. It's very much about losing Mo. It's like weird to know that my dad read that, and when my sister was reading To Wallow in Ash and Other Sorrows for like a long time, she was kind of spacing it out because it's intense, and she and Mo were very close. And I sent her a message around when she was getting close to finishing it. I was like, I'm really sorry, like that you have like about that last story, like if that was really intense or like too much, or because I get it. And she was like, "Oh, I didn't read it. Dad warned me."
It's like you got to apologize ahead of time now. Like, I'm going to release something, okay? Just be ready for it. So the writers that kind of make up your foundation, do you pursue them? Are they coming to you with what they have? How does one become published by Weirdpunk Books?
It's a bit of a mixed bag historically. So when Joe Cornell's The Mud Ballad was the first.
That's a masterpiece, by the way.
Oh God, it's so good. I need more people to read that.
I love the cover. The cover is awesome on that.
Yes. The cover was the photo was done by my friend Neil Ausch, who's a photographer in Canada who used to live in Minnesota, and we've been friends for years. And then Don Noble did the text on it, but I fucking love that cover.
So is it a real pig head?
It's a real pig head. He does these.
That's awesome.
Neil Ausch, like if you look him up, he's like in magazines and stuff. He does these a lot of still life with like carcass material and dead animals. And he's a vegan, and it's not it's like not super in your face. It's vegan art, right? He's just making these compositions with dead things.
That's a story right there. Vegan having to photograph dead animals.
But I know for sure it is like a commentary to some degree, but it's still also they're just amazing, beautiful pieces of art. But yeah, so Joe is not super old, but is a friend of mine. I first met her through Zombie Punk's Fuck Off. She submitted to it, got in, like we became friends, and then we met at the next BizarroCon because she lives in Seattle, and that BizarroCon happens in kind of by Portland, and so we ended up hanging out and just becoming like now she's like one of my best friends, one of my favorite people. We talk, she's great. We talk often. Anyhow, so she was around the time that Grindhouse was opening for subs, like it must have been 2018 or so, 2019 maybe, or 2019. She hit me up and she was like, so I wrote this novella a while ago, and last time I read it after I finished, I thought it was just shit. So I threw it in a folder and I didn't think about it again for like a year. And I was just the other day, I was curious about it. So I opened it up and looked through it and I went, fuck, this really isn't too bad. This is actually kind of good. And she was like, would you read it and let me know if you think it's good enough to submit to Grindhouse? And just like we'll beta read each other's stuff all the time, give notes, give feedback. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to read a novella you wrote, because I already know she's a great writer. So I read it and I was fucking blown away by it.
Yeah,
it's goddamn good. And so I don't fully remember saying this. She in an interview said that I said this. I said, well, it's not probably right for Grindhouse. And I didn't mean to be shitty. Like maybe they would have published it, but I read that fucking story and I went like, I want to publish this. And I was like, let's fucking do it. Like I had already been contemplating moving into novellas because anthologies are so expensive to produce, especially like when you're doing the big ones with like fucking between 10 and 20 stories or whatever. It's a lot of money because you're paying for the stories. Obviously, and I want to make sure I'm paying like at least a cent a word, just the line I have. I wish it could be more, but it's always been a thing for me. And I was like, but they're really expensive. Like the New Flesh cost a lot to make. And it was like, maybe novellas. I talked to some people, like I talked to Nick and Don at, Strange House and Rooster Republic to kind of pick their brain because they've been in this for a long time too. And they're
Rooster
like,
Republic's great.
Yeah, I love both those guys, and they put out amazing books. So it was like picking their brain on it. They're like, yeah, novellas are cheaper. They're cheaper to produce.
Yeah.
And everybody loves them. Like they're super quick to read, get through them quick. Everybody's just, I think the novella and horror is like the hot thing.
Agreed. And it's like it's probably my favorite type of horror to read. I love short stories too, and I love novels, but novellas, they're succinct. You can read them in a sitting or two. So anyway, so I was like, had already been kicking it around, like maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this. And then it was like, fuck it, let's do this. And so I told Josie, or told Joe, like, let's just gonna publish this shit. And if you want me to publish this shit, I'm not gonna make you let me publish it, but if you want. And she was like, fuck yeah. And so I was just getting done with like final edits on Sabbath of the Fox Devils. I was like, I have my first 2 releases. Let's just go. And I had I had like thrown that to a couple people and then pulled it. It got rejected from one press, and then I had like 3 or 4 other presses were looking at it, and I was just like, I don't know. I have a vision for the cover. Like, I knew exactly what I wanted it to be. I knew I wanted to work with Michael Bukowski. I was like, fuck it. First wave of Weirdpunk novellas are Joe Quinnell's The Mud Ballad and my own Sabbath of the Fox Devils. And then from there, it was like, how do I figure out what I'm going to publish next, who I'm going to publish next? And ultimately, kind of the system I've developed is I definitely have writers who I'm a fan of, who I know they're like good people or decent people. Because, I have the whole thing. Like, I fucking won't work with scumbags. I won't. Even if the book is amazing, I'm not going to fucking ever publish someone who's like a white supremacist or any of fuck that shit.
Is that on the application that
it is in the contract? Like, it's literally in the contract. I fucking will not work with that type of person. And so it's like I want to know, and I also just don't want to work with assholes.
Right.
It's like I want to know like decent people, because it's not just a business relationship, but you also don't want to work with an asshole in a business relationship, right? You want it to be like a friendly, good person. So I've asked a lot of writers I know to submit stuff to me when when they have it. But then I was like, okay, how do I have a lot of people who are like, I'm writing something. So it was like, I don't know, like a couple people started reaching out to me, and that's like the next book was Roland's book. And he was just like, hey, I have this novella, and do you want to read it? And I was like, okay, as a one-person operation, and at the time with a full-time job and a dog and a fucking girlfriend and all of this other life stuff and my own writing, how am I going to make this feasible? Because I've seen small presses do open submissions on novellas, and it's like they'll be like, oh my God, we got 120 novellas.
Now you have to go through all.
Yeah, like now I need to try to read them in 2 months. And that sounds like hell.
Yeah.
So I started doing a thing where I was like, if anybody hit me up with a thing, I was like, okay, it has to be finished. Don't pitch me on something that's not done, because then if I really want to read it, I'm like, where is it? Wait till it's done. And give me like back cover copy, a pitch that's like, it doesn't need to be exactly what the back cover copy will be for the book, but roughly how you would write. Here's the
elevator pitch.
Yeah, if you picked it up at a bookstore, and then give me kind of tones and influences on it, so I could kind of suss out a realm. Like, does it sound like it's a realm I'm into? And so that's been a lot of the things that I've published have been people, hit me up. Sometimes I'll have open periods where I'm like, open to novella submit like pitches, and I'll get some bites, and I'll go through, and then there'll be a handful that are like, that sounds really cool. And not that they don't all sound cool, but it's about like, is this right for Weirdpunk? Is this right for the press? I have a whole thing where it's my hope, and maybe this isn't a reality, but it's my hope that whoever, or like if somebody picks up any one of the books, hopefully they would also like any of the other of the books.
That same feel to it, yeah.
They're all different. They're all their own voices, but they're all Weirdpunk. And that's like a whole weirdly just a thing like that I kind of want it to always be. So it's like I've read some that have been like really cool, good, but just not right for the press. And so that's kind of how it's been going forward. And I have sort of an open, maybe kind of secret, not so secret now, open door policy on pitches if it's people I know. If it's people, especially people I've worked with in the past, anthologies or whatever, just like friends. Like, I'm like, if you've got something you think I'll probably like it. So even if I post on submissions on the website, like pitch submissions on the website, if I like know your thing and you know my thing and we're friends, like I'll send it my way, and I'll, if I have the time, if it sounds like it's up my alley.
Right.
And there's been kind of a thing because Weirdpunk, with those first couple anthologies, we like came out of the Bizarro scene. Like the Wonderland Award is the Bizarro Award, or like a Bizarro Award, but it's like the big award in Bizarro. And I've always called myself a Bizarro adjacent writer, like because none of that stuff's like pure Bizarro, but it is weird, and that's kind of where I got weird horror. But so that's kind of been a thing, is like pushing the people's understanding of what weird punk is and what I do into the like, no, it's horror.
Right.
Yeah.
For weird horror. I want it to be weird horror, but horror first. Yeah.
I've heard people actually mention Bizarro when they were talking about weird punk, and I've chimed in. I say it's totally different. I mean, not 100%. There's some, bizarre stuff happening, but there is a difference. There's a feel to it because Bizarro, I mean,
seems way more out there than
and there's just a feel to it. I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm so drawn to it and what I like. I mean, that's just me. But
yeah, it's like, I mean, there's a couple of the books that I would say are closer to Bizarro. Like I think the Mud Ballad is very close to Bizarro. It has Bizarro elements for sure, but it's still fucking weird horror.
Right. Like the bizarre stuff does not overtake the book. The horror is still there. And the weirdness is still there. Yeah. But it's not over the top bizarre to make you think, well, this is just bizarre.
Just bizarre for the sake of being bizarre.
Exactly.
Yeah, I kind of think of like, so I really see with all of the different horror and kind of horror adjacent subgenres, there's so many weird walls and dividers that I don't feel like, I mean, personally, it's like I read a lot of the different stuff, and I don't think that they're all super necessary. But I really, if I think about weird punk and my own writing too, like where it kind of sits in this pantheon of different types of horror and horror adjacent genres, I really feel like it's kind of a Venn diagram that includes splatterpunk, bizarro, cosmic horror, and weird fiction, and just horror. And like that little thing where all those meet, like that's weird horror.
Yeah,
that's your pie chart.
It include elements of any of those, and other ones too. Those are just off the top of my head, but it like has to include elements of more than one of them to like fit in that. Like, oh yeah, it's strange, it's weird, it can be more creepy, but it sometimes is more splattery. It can kind of be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But it's also a little different than any one of those things. And that's the kind of shit I've always been drawn to.
Right.
Like the thing is just a little fucking weirder, a little different.
So when's the next time you're going to throw out, hey, send me stuff, people?
I've had a number of people ask me that recently, and I was kind of gearing up to, but now I don't know. It might not be until late this year.
Yeah.
And it'll all depend too, because like I said, I have a number of people who are like, oh, I'm writing something for you. So if I get those and I like them, then those are like filling slots in last couple this year and early next year. And I have a few things I still need to read for consideration. So it's just, I never want to overwhelm myself.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just, again, like I don't even have a job, but I just still feel like especially with Eric's book, like I go to the post office literally every day. I'm packing orders every night. Which is
I was going to save that one, but since you brought it up, I mean,
it's a good problem to have, but it's like, doing a lot of weird punk stuff lately.
Before we dive into that one, just Rob down here saying weird punk's not Carlton Mellick III.
Right. Yeah, and I love Carlton.
Exactly.
He's a great writer. We're just not. It's not quite on that
not that level.
On that level. Yeah, it's just a different thing. It's just a different flavor, and you can see some of that in some of the Roland. 17 Names for Skin is also pretty bizarro too, and I think he's Eraserhead published his first book, so he's very firmly from that scene too. But it's just a little different. Brendan Vedito and Charles Austin Muir and Lucas Mangum and I have all talked about because I know them all through the bizarro scene. There's always we're not the pure bizarro guys. We're the weird horror guys.
It's I can see a playground fight, bizarro, weird horror, beating up in the middle. Okay, we're going to have this out. We're going to have this out somehow.
Well, they would
a wrestling match.
There's so many more of them than there are of us.
Yeah. So speaking of Eric's book, I mean, you had to exactly. You had to foresee the success, right? What
has this been like? Just absolutely blowing up the way it has. What's that been like for you in Weirdpunk?
It's really surreal. It's every release I always hope will catch a wind, get to people in a way that. I don't know. Sometimes a book just lands at I don't know if it's the perfect moment and it's the perfect thing, but for whatever reason, you want that for every release. But this fucking did it, and boy, did it do it beyond my imagination at this point. And
I feel like I saw his Twitter like one of his posts about Eric's post about this had like 1,000 likes on it, which was just insane.
Yeah, it's gone. People talking about the book now 2 different times have gone viral on TikTok.
Yeah.
And by viral, literally the one, there was somebody I think posted yesterday. It was 3 of the most disturbing reads or something, and Eric's was one of them, and it had like 30,000 likes or something, like something really mind blowing. So it's in a weird way, it's been kind of overwhelming. I order a case of the book, and by the time it gets here, it's almost sold out. So I don't want another one. And it's a combination of like, obviously it's on all the print on demand, like you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on Bookshop, you can get it on Barnes & Noble and all these other places. And you can get the ebook from all those places. Plus it's on Godless for $1 cheaper if you're an ebook person. But I'm always trying to like direct people to, if they're in the US at least, direct people to buy the book from Weirdpunk, because it's more money for the press and it's more money for Eric. Right. Just like Amazon and shit, they take a huge cut, and there's a lot more money to go around, which is great. But it also means that sometimes, like there was a bit there where I was going to the post office. I had to go to the post office multiple days in a row with 40 books at a time because I didn't want to.
Oh, they were loving to see you.
Yeah, I didn't want to show up with like 120 books. Because it's media mail, you can't order that off the USPS website.
Right, you got to do it in person. Yeah.
So it's like sitting there, standing there for like an hour to get them to, and it's fine, and they're always really nice about it. But I always feel bad, like looking at the line behind me, like, sorry, guys, this book blew up. And
did you get a box in? You're like, okay, how am I going to let people know I have this box in? Because it's going to go crazy.
Yeah.
Meet me at midnight on the corner.
You got your trench coat. You open it and all
password.
Pockets.
Yeah. Password to get it.
Hey, I got some weird horror for you here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely knew that book would strike a chord. Working with Eric was so cool. He's such an awesome guy. And the moment, like he described the book, because I did the pitch thing too,
Yeah. It's definitely weird.
Yeah, I was like. He said the key words. He said, I kind of wrote it thinking about he's like kind of like A.G. Ballard, Dennis Cooper, and David Cronenberg. And I was like, 3 of my favorites, send it to me right now. Put it in my brain.
I just think it's so cool. Like other writers are wanting to get it too. Like Chad Lutsky is the one who won my giveaway today.
I saw that.
By the way. Yeah. So I mean that's just pretty cool. And he entered as soon as he saw the contest. I mean he tweeted it out for me too a few times. So that's pretty cool. Other writers are just wanting to get on board with this book from Eric, and I just that's great. So
I don't know Chad super well. We're friends on Facebook, but god damn, can that guy write?
His stuff like. I say this every time, and it sounds like I'm putting it down, but I mean this in like the best way possible.
Oh, no, I said the same thing. I think we agree about it. Yeah,
his writing is like so simple, but in the most positive way I can say it. It's just I don't know,
so inviting,
so clean and crisp, and just straight to the point about it. It's just his writing's great.
Yeah, it's just so It's so simple and straight to it, but it invites you in. It's like a warm blanket around you. So it's just.
And he's still, with it being so simple, he still has that prose magic in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of that. It's like he's definitely a different writer, but that Lansdale style, right? Of like it's really really precise. There's not more words than there needs to be.
I think Lansdale's one of his big influences too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for so many of us.
Yeah. So what was it? Did you get this blurb on the back from Mallerman, or did Eric do that?
That was actually Eric. That was all Eric, because he is managed by Ryan Spin a Black Yarn.
Spin the Black Yarn, the movie company.
Who also manages Josh, Josh's manager. So Eric managed to get him to. I mean, Eric is obviously super talented, but it's always so cool to see somebody like hit that. Like, okay, he's managed by the same guy who manages Josh.
That's a big blurb to have on there. That's a good one.
So he sent it to him. I'm usually like, for a blurb, I'm like, we should aim for 2 to 4 is like the sweet spot for a book.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of maybe ask a few above that. If you want to, ask 4 people. If you want 4, ask 5 or 6. Because some people aren't going to get to it. You know, they're not
right.
read it. I know I've done that in the past. Like, sorry, I meant to read that for you for a blurb, but like I did not have time. It just is the nature of the beast, especially with other writers who are busy and everything, so much going on. But he ended up managing to get like really a lot of blurbs, which is well deserved. But it was really funny. He's like, I got this one, and I got
like 2 pages of them.
Yeah, we can fill as many pages as you want, and they're great blurbs by amazing writers. But okay,
yeah. That's another thing. I'll send it to so many authors. I know Chad Lesky says this, like he'll sort of agree to tentatively blurb it, but he has to like the book. He's not just going to blurb it if he doesn't like it.
Yeah, same. And I think that's what most people do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to talk about this cover, by the way. Maria Abrams.
Oh my God.
It's such a great book too. But I mean, that cover, I have it sitting on my shelf, so it should be the back of my videos now. But I mean, that cover, she did that herself, right?
Yeah. She's a graphic designer by day. So part of my process is always, so like when I, as a writer,
card in case people want to. When
I'm writing things, I'm always like thinking visually because I'm a very visual person, which is why the Weirdpunk books look really good because it's
all the covers look great,
really good. And I'm not like trying to be an arrogant jerk, but they look good. Like I go out of my way to make sure they like fucking pop.
Like they say, don't judge a book by its cover, but people judge books by their covers.
Absolutely. And you know, in a weird way, like I don't think that's totally wrong. You know, you want to see somebody took the time and the care to make something look good.
If you slapped it together in 5 minutes in paint, I'm probably not going to pick your book up.
Exactly, because I'm assuming the insides are going to reflect that same kind of hastily, shoddily put together thing. Yeah, so as a writer, I'm always like thinking about the book cover as I'm writing a thing. And I don't know if other people work like that. So every time an author comes, you know, I'll put out their book, when the contract is signed, one of the first conversations I have is, what do you want? Like among a long list of things that, you know, that we're going to talk about and think about, I was like, what do you think about the cover? Do you have any ideas? Do you have any artists? Do you have even a direction or an image? And for me, it's important that the author obviously has a say in that, and it's a collaborative thing. There's things I have to consider, but I also want to make sure that they have a say, and like more than a say, that it's a collaboration. I just like, it's like I have to make sure it's kind of up to my visual standard, my aesthetic standard, and like fits within Weirdpunk. Again, that's a pretty open thing. There's a lot of room in there, but there's certain covers that just would not fit as Weirdpunk covers. So, you know, with that, I was like, is there an art? I was like, I know you're a designer. You can design it if you want, but no pressure. Like, you do this all day. If you want us to hire someone, we can hire someone and like, or get some art or whatever you want. And she was like, yeah, I think I want to do it. I was like, yeah, no pressure, like no pressure. But if you want to do it, that would be fucking cool.
It fits the story so well too. I mean,
it makes sense because she's in the, you know, she knows that book so well. She knows how that book is, how that book feels. And she hit me up like, she was like, I'll think about it. I'm pretty sure I want to do it. And she hit me up, I think it was like 5 or 6 days later. And she had 3 mock-ups. And she was like, you know, I just made these just kind of over the past couple days. These are 3 different possible directions. These aren't final. They're just like ideas that I have. We can tweak stuff. We can change stuff. She's like, you know, I do this all the time as a job. So I have no ego attached to this. Like I get, but it's also your book. So I want you to like make sure that it looks good for you. But one of the 3 was like an early version of what the cover ended up being. Yeah. It's still really close. Like we made a few changes, but I was like, that's it. Like you fucking nailed it. Definitely, it's like, again, kind of maybe a little different than some of the other book covers. Yeah. But at the time, it's so stunning and it's so cool and it's weird and it just, God, she's a great fucking designer.
And speaking of blurbs, like we were just a second ago, I mean, I fucking love this book. That's from Ali Say on the back of it. So there you go.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Like I always go like, is there anybody you want to ask?
Yeah.
Is there anybody who I have, you know, some connection to who I could ask, or authors or, you know, people you want to ask? We can figure that out. And that was one where she was like, yeah, I don't really know. Like, and we kind of spitballed. I was like, Allie is amazing, and she's actually the next weird.
The next one, yeah, I was gonna bring that
So
up.
yeah, you have her coming up.
And she and I have become friends, and she's so sweet, and she's so fucking good. She's such a good writer too. And I was like, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me that she would like go down hard. Like they're very different books. She Rules the Dead and Go Down Hard are different books, but similar kind of spirit, similar kind of vein, you know. And I was like, let's ask Allie, and Maria was like, yeah, fuck, let's do it. And luckily, she loved it, and gave a killer blurb.
Looks like we're selling books here in the comments.
Yeah.
Maybe Reader went to the site. Megan Lucas ordered some books.
Cool.
And answered Jim's
Splatter
question.
Jim, yeah. Hopefully in a year, next summer.
Reprint.
Yeah, reprint 2022.
With new additional stuff with it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Wingspan's got an awesome cover too, and that fits the story. That because it's so abstract. And we can't forget about yours too.
Oh, yeah.
We can't forget about yours.
Like honestly, this is probably my favorite cover of any book I've read so far this year.
Oh wow, okay.
I love it.
Yeah, that was. We need to go back and talk about Joanna's. We could talk about Sabbath.
Yeah.
Sabbath of the Fox Devils. That is Michael Bukowski did that cover, and he did the cover for Zombie Punk's Fuck Off and for the New Flash. And he's a Philadelphia artist who's like deep in the punk and metal scene and has done album artwork for a bunch of like hardcore bands and stuff.
Right.
And then he also has done artwork for a lot of small presses and books in the weird fiction world. And that guy is so cool, and his stuff is so fucking good that as I was writing that book, and I wrote that book for like a long time. It was kind of a slow burn.
Yeah.
Mo died in the middle of it, so I stopped writing it. And like the middle of me writing it, I stopped writing it, and then came back to it after To Wallow and Ash when I felt like I can now write this without it having to be the types of stories I was writing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the
And
immediate.
you touch on that in the afterward too.
Yeah. I didn't want to I just didn't want to have it be like super impacted by that because it's just a different story. But the whole time I was writing it, I was like, once I had worked with Michael once, I was like, he's the guy. Like he's the guy for that fucking cover. And he nailed it. Like everything. And he did the cover text too. Like he did.
Yeah, the text looks great.
I love artwork like that because I used to draw stuff like this when I was a kid. When I was younger. I mean, I haven't done it in 30 years, but yeah, that's what I used to do that stuff. So, I mean, whenever I see like artwork like this, it catches my eye.
Yeah.
Like the Creepies cart, without giving too much away, the Creepies cartoon in here, this is totally what I pictured the cartoon looking like.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a partially, so my girlfriend just finally read that book, or is reading that book. And she's like, I want episodes of Creepies to exist.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually have half of an episode written, like a standalone that I was going to put in a short story collection.
Has that ever been like a thought to make a Creepies like comic book, like graphic novel or anything? That'd be awesome.
That would be super cool. I would love to.
Because I know Kevin Wellware Beard, he did the review, and he said that he could totally just picture this like splattered across the pages of like a comic book or something, just with how visual the writing was and all the blood and guts and stuff.
Yeah,
I'd totally love to see this adapted to comic book. Or
that would be really cool. I hadn't thought about that. My big dream is to, like, if I could have anything done with that book, it would be to get it turned into a movie using all practical effects.
Oh yeah,
like seriously, like 80s.
Like the Thing kind of effects.
Yeah, like
it's got to be released on VHS.
Yeah, exactly.
You could see the puppets of the foxes, but you could kind of see the strings, and they're kind of janky when they move.
The person's hand in their mouth.
Yeah,
kind of.
That'd be awesome.
But yeah, so Joanna's. I don't want to skip.
No, we got to
Watches Wingspan. Just in general, fucking amazing book. I was so excited when they pitched that to me. I was like, okay, I gotta fucking read this. And we went back and forth on a few covers for that because it was just like really like trying to figure out what would really work well. And we were at a point where it was like, I don't know, we kind of maybe hit a little bit of a wall of just being like, fuck, I don't know what's going to like really work perfectly. And Don Noble he did that cover. And he sent like our last revision on the thing we had talked about. And he's like, I also came up with a couple other things kind of in this vein. And that was one of them. and it was like, oh fuck, oh fuck is the cover. Like you found it. It's so funny how some stuff is like that. Some books takes a little digging to find like the perfect image to put on the cover, and other
even the thing on the back looks good too.
Yeah,
the king in yellow.
Yeah,
the yellow, the king in yellow on the back. Like,
yeah,
it just, and some books it's like fucking, oh, that's you right away you get it. You're like, oh, I know exactly what it's gonna be. It's funny that way. Yeah,
the writing is on another level too. I think when I read it, I was like, am I smart enough to be reading this?
I remember you said that in your review.
I didn't want to say that in a negative way, but I was like, really, I have to go back and reread it because I know I missed something. Because it's just, man.
Yeah, they like Joe writes the coolest prose. Like they're amazing. They were so cool, like so fun to work with on that project. I'm eternally like grateful to have published that book and worked with them, and can now call them friend because they're such a cool person.
Yeah. So with Sabbath of the Fox Devils, this takes place like the Satanic Panic and stuff. I'm not sure how old you are. Did you grow up in the Satanic Panic?
Yeah. So that book, the character Joe in that is a little older than me. It's essentially me as a kid. Like that book is. There's a lot of differences, but it's also very influenced by my childhood. So I was born in 82. I'm 38.
Okay. Oh, you youngins.
I was born in 86, so I'm the baby here.
So the like Satanic Panic, I think people think of it as very much an 80s thing, but it went on well into the 90s.
Oh, I remember a lot of the 80s and 90s. I remember a lot of it. And mainly the music part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, especially. And so like, especially in the environment I grew up in, it was a very tangible, real thing.
Yeah.
We had different preachers who would come to my church, like guest preachers, and they would talk about Satanic Panic shit. And they would show videos, and they would show I don't know if you remember like how much you know about the Satanic Panic, but there was all the like kids' drawings of the depictions of satanic rituals that they supposedly endured. You know, like all that stuff was like a part of my childhood. And I've always been fascinated by that time kind of as an adult outside of it. I just needed to find a way to deal with some of the, growing up in a hyper religious oppressive environment. And, I was like, fuck it. I have a thing, and I don't want to like offend anybody, but my least favorite trope in horror is Jesus saves the day from the supernatural evil.
Yeah.
Conjuring movies, most of them do that. There's a whole bunch of like movies where that becomes the premise, so that becomes the solution.
Embarrassing. I love those movies, but still.
Yeah. But no, it's literally Jesus's blood. Like they have, and I hate that shit, just personally, and especially coming from the background I do. So I was like, I want to fucking write a book that's more in line with my personal philosophy, where like, you know what, the darkness is the light. In a lot of ways, and there's illumination there, and there's freedom there, and like I'm gonna fucking write that. And the only time I can think to set that in that makes sense is the Satanic Panic, where, the characters, like the parents, the town, are like super convinced that the devil is lurking right outside, right outside their periphery at any moment, just because that's the environment I grew up in.
See, I remember like in grade school, at the time the cool fashion was a jean jacket, but you would get patches to put on it, like certain bands and stuff. And there's a guy that he had all of these, supposedly Satan bands, because it was like Kiss and Wasp and stuff like that. And he had the pentagram on there. And I think that's when he had that patch on there. The school finally said, you can't wear that here anymore. And I would go home like, I want this jean jacket and I want these patches. My parents were like, no. I didn't know why, but like, I don't know why they don't like Kiss or Ozzy or something like that, Judas Priest. But, now look I turned out fine.
I don't know about that. That's saying you turned out fine, pushing the envelope there a little, Jay.
Oh boy.
I'm still big into Dungeons and Dragons. That was a big thing too. Playing these devil games and conjuring demons and stuff while you're playing the game. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, same. So like my parents were divorced before I was even one, so I kind of grew up in two environments, and it's the hyper religious oppressive environment of my mom's house, and that anything goes. Let's play Dungeons and Dragons and watch horror movies and read comic books at my dad's house. And I feel like that dichotomy is what turned me into the person I am today, because I was into it all, but it was also, I was exposed to it by one parent, but it was much maligned by another, which is the perfect atmosphere to make it really cool.
Yeah.
My dad is an old tabletop gamer from like the 70s. Like he
with like TSR and all that stuff.
He like knew, I'm pretty sure he knows like from way back Gary Gygax and shit. So he was a very early D&D player. And so he had all that stuff. So it'd be like Friday nights at Dad's house, we would play Dungeons and Dragons or like Mech Warrior tabletop, or, you know, like RPG and he had a sand table in the basement. Like I like totally bit my teeth on that stuff. And then at church it was like, these are actual spells and you're
that's good.
It's just wild that people would be so, I don't want to say gullible is the right word, but just like so afraid of like just the game, like really thinking that that's real, and you're really casting spells, like you said, and conjuring demons and stuff. It's wild to think people thought that was actually happening.
Yeah, and it's like what a perverse worldview where you think you like actually run around thinking that stuff's like really truly real.
Yeah,
like, and not metaphor or not poetry or not. I mean, it's the same thing with like anytime you watch, you know, those super far right conservative Christian pundits try to talk about art or construct any kind of art. Little Nas X, the Montero thing, right? Like how any part of that's referencing, you know, an entire history of art is completely lost on these people. And it's really, I find it really funny. You can't have a conversation about art if you don't know anything about art.
Right.
And about, you know, like in that instance, right, you really can't see that he's not saying the devil is rad, even though the devil's rad. He's saying, you called me the devil my whole life because I'm a gay black man, so I'm going to see the devil. Like, you can't see that there's a power in that symbolism that isn't because the devil's real. It's because you weaponized your religion against a whole group of people for like their whole lives, and he's reclaiming it. Like it's bonkers when I see people have those discussions.
Brad, you want to?
You'll play a game.
Yeah, we're getting to about an hour and a half point here. Let's finish it on some fun here, some game show contestant stuff right up. This is our version of it. So
we're play a movie trivia.
You were part of the David Cronenberg tribute that we were talking about earlier. So you're a fan, right?
Yes.
Super fan. He knows everything.
Well, I had a message from earlier before this happened just to make sure, because I didn't want to just come up with all these questions and they were like, what the hell is this? But
I just edited it, man. I don't know nothing.
Yeah, I know. I mean, these are simple. You'll get these, but let's do this.
You ready? Let's play some movie trivia.
Okay.
Snazzy.
We're fancy here on the show.
Did we hire somebody for that stuff?
We spent the whole entire budget for the rest of the year on that clip.
Hey, my wife doesn't know we have a budget for it. No.
Oh, I didn't know either.
Okay. Number one, you'll get these. Number one, Debbie Harry of Blondie plays Nikki Brand in this 1983 film about snuff conserved on hardcore videos. What's the name of the movie?
Videodrome.
Got it.
Obviously, one of the best. I love that fucking movie. We got to keep score. I got to write down how many you get right.
He's gonna get all, dude. If I got 9 out of 10 without seeing half these, he's gonna get all of them. This one, everyone in the chat's gonna get this one here for number 2. Christopher Walken plays Johnny Smith, the man with psychic abilities, in this 1983 movie based on a Stephen King novel.
The Dead Zone.
Yeah. If you would have got that, we would have stopped right now.
Just cut the feed. We're done.
Exactly. All right. What is the name of Jeff Goldblum's character in the 1986 movie The Fly?
Seth Brundle.
Damn.
Ooh,
yep, that's right.
3.
All right. Cronenberg's first film was filmed in Toronto inside an apartment building where a bizarre disease infects the residents of the building, and one man is the carrier. Name this movie. Shivers. Kick ass.
Not technically his first movie. He had 2 before that, but they didn't get the kind of distribution that one did.
Yeah, I was going to throw it in there and try to mess with you, but
yeah.
very low budget show here.
We spent it all, man. That 5-second clip, lower budget.
This is another movie title. You'll get this. This 1980 movie release, which opened in the U.S. at #1, sci-fi thriller about a group of good telepathic people at war with evil telepathic people.
Scanners.
So simple, right? Okay. All right. We're going to get a little, and these are to consider the hard ones. That was just a warm up. So, okay. Name 2 actors in the 2005 release, A History of Violence.
Viggo Mortensen and Ed Harris.
Those were 1 and 2. I would also took Maria Bello and William Hurt, who was nominated.
Right, William Hurt.
He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for an Oscar in that movie, by the way.
Okay.
Name the 2007 film that also starred Viggo Mortensen.
Eastern Promises.
Yeah. You got to get out more, man. The only thing worse than losing your mind is finding it again. Comes from what 2002 film?
Uh-oh.
The only thing worse than losing your mind is finding it again.
2002?
Yes.
Oh, we might have got a stumper.
Is that Existence or is that Spider?
It's Spiders. Yeah.
We give him half a point on that one.
You want to go with half?
We'll give it to him. We'll give it to him.
Okay.
He followed it right up with Spiders. He knew. He didn't think.
He had a 50-50 shot there. Okay.
Yeah.
Peter Weller stars in this 1991 film based on the novel with the same name by William S. Burroughs.
Naked Lunch.
You got it. Who plays the gynecologist in The Fly?
Oh, David Cronenberg.
There you go. Okay. So you got 9.5. Okay, here's a bonus.
Bonus.
What's your favorite Cronenberg movie? Do you have one?
This is I've had to answer I've answered.
This is the hardest one on the list, right?
I've answered this question several times on different podcasts since that book came out. And honestly, I think the answer changes every time. There's kind of like a running, like they're always in flux. There's a few I really like. I think it might be The Brood.
Okay. And I didn't have a question for that one, did I?
Fucking love The Brood. But also, like, I can name any of them. They're all like fucking, especially that classic period. But I love them all. Like Videodrome Scanners, fucking Dead Ringers. Yeah, I don't know. They're fucking amazing.
I think a lot of them are free on Tubi right now, by the way. I don't know why I know that, but Tubi's got a bunch of them right now.
Nice.
Dana says, since you win, you need a blue jean jacket with devil patches as your prize.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll get right on that.
A little flashback. All right, Brad, you got anything else for our guest here? We got to.
No, I don't think we've done pretty good. About an hour and a half.
Sam, thank you so much for joining Two Clowns and Microphones here.
Is that the name of the new show? Two Clowns and
yeah. When this one collapses, Two Clowns with Microphones would be the next thing. Trademark. Yeah,
it's been fun though.
Yeah,
it's been a blast, man. We really appreciate it. We could not have asked for a better guest for episode 2 of this future award-winning show, Paper Cuts.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was fucking awesome. It was really good to get to hang out with you and talk about a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it turned into. And that's what we were aiming for. So, yeah.
Before we go, do you want to shout out where people can find you on social media and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Weirdpunk Books is at just weirdpunkbooks.com for the website. Got a store there where you can buy all the releases, plus a bunch of other stuff. I've got merch, and I have a tarot set that my late wife was working on when she died that we helped finish with a group of friends. I've got Weird Punk shirts, and then I have anthologies and shit that I have stories in on there as well. And then Weird Punk is also on Instagram and Twitter, just at Weird Punk Books. It's also on Facebook. And then personally, I have Instagram and Twitter just at Sammy Totep, Totep, all one word, Sammy Totep.
And for people that are watching, all the links for Weird Punk and your social media should be down in the description if they want to go check that out.
Just FYI, this will be running continuously on Brad's channel. You guys know him as Brad Proctor from the channel Brad Proctor. Tomorrow, sometime this weekend,
I'm real creative with coming up with those names.
Sometime this weekend, I will upload the same show to my channel for the one person that might be in the chat that I doubt it.
You get the sympathy view because I'll watch it on your channel.
I'll get one, yeah. And then probably Sunday, maybe early Monday at the latest. This will be available at least on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It takes Apple a few extra days to get it for some reason. But other than that, any parting words, guys?
Go ahead, Sam. I
don't know. Hail Satan, y'all.
Y'all. He's got the y'all at the end. You got it. All right.
So if you are an author, though, and want to maybe be on the show, you can send the inquiries to the papercutspodcast@gmail.com. Jay might check the email. He might not. I don't know.
I check it normally. Hey.
Hey.
I thought this was a code thing here. You have access to it.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we could go ahead and give like a future update because we're booked through July.
Yeah. So next episode, which is Saturday, July 10th, and Brian Boyer will be joining us for episode 3.
Special Saturday edition. See, we're flexible. We do it when the writer can do it. So yeah. So until then, exciting episode of number 2 of Paper Cuts. Thank you guys for stopping by in the chat. Thanks for joining in, chatting with us. Sam, thank you so much for stopping by with us.
Thanks for coming, Sam.
For my co-host, Brad Proctor, I'm Jay Maddox. Until next time, stay safe, guys.
Bye guys.